Welcome to another ETCS Bytes Back talk, and this time we're looking at automatic train operation and automatic driving in ETCS. So I suppose the first question is, do you trust a computer? Well, I'm old enough to remember about 15, 20 years ago when gas bills were first computerized and everyone got wrong bills, and it was sort of became a running joke that the bill would never be right. So now we're putting our trust into computer systems for the safety of people on a train. A bit like a self-driving car, really. And for a long time, the idea of a train being driven automatically worried people. People were unsure that it could be safe. They liked having a person at the front. But automatic trains have been around a lot longer than people realise. Victoria Line, the Underground Line in London, actually started automatic service in 1968 and it's been very successful with no significant incidents. However, to keep people happy, the guard or train manager sits at the front of the train looking just like a driver, although they do nothing. And that's been perpetuated with the Central Line, Jubilee Line, Northern Line, and other automatic lines in London. And despite all people's fears and perceptions, well-designed systems are actually much more reliable and predictable than humans. When we're talking about automatic train operation, we talk about grades of automation, GOA, and they run from 0 at the bottom, where there is no support to the driver, up to GOA 4 at the top, which is completely autonomous operation, such as people movers at airports. And as one moves up, the amount of human involvement in green reduces and the system takes more and more command in purple. For ETCS, ATO over ETCS focuses on GOA2. Here, the driver is monitoring the system, managing door closure and the departure of the train, and is able to intervene in event of a problem. And we'll be looking as we go through a little bit more detail at what ETCS can do and ATO in ETCS can do. So let's have a look at some core principles. Well, the first thing is there must be an automatic train protection system available and it must be active. You can't have a computer driving a train without any safety systems. The signalling system must be providing a movement authority, and that must be proved as part of going into the automatic operation. And that movement authority must not require any human input. So, for instance, a movement authority in OS on site does require human input, so it is not compatible with automatic train operation. And also, the operating environment must be suitable. The risk to the public, passengers, and trespassers needs to be managed. So, for example, if we were looking at a people mover, then it would have automatic doors with object detection to make sure nobody can be trapped. It will have suitable messages to passengers instructing them what to do, like to leave the train, to stand clear of the doors, etc. And there will be no access to the track for any people, either members of the public or staff, whilst the people mover is in operation, since should something be observed on the track, nothing can be done. And generally, it will be supplied with remote CCTV monitoring of both the cars and also the track. So ATO over ETCS was introduced in baseline 4, and that introduces a new mode of operation, a movement authority called automatic driving. And this mode is a mode which is the equivalent of full supervision, but has the added bit that the train is being driven automatically. The specifications cover operation in GOA2. They also provide for GOA1, where driver advisory information can be provided in the cab. The distance and speed supervision of ETCS still remains in place, and that is the safety underpinning layer. but the driver is able to pass control to the ATO system, and they will then continue to supervise the journey but will not be actively involved in driving. If, however, the ATO system cannot manage the train, perhaps because an on-site movement authority is issued, then the control and command will be transferred back to the driver. So what do we need for ATO? Well, we need the Safe Management of Movements, ETCS. The onboard also needs to know the timetable, and it needs to know the locations of stations, platforms, and stopping positions. Now, one of the issues is with automatic train operation is that it can be very abrupt and it can cause high rates of change of acceleration, which are known as a jerk or jolt, a surge or a lurch. And it's that problem of changing acceleration quickly, perhaps from braking to accelerating or vice versa, that is very noticeable on many ATO operated trains. And it tends to be that jerk that causes people to fall over, lose their balance, or bang into the handrails. And it is what one notices. And I can remember when they first introduced ATO on the Northern Line in London, and the train would be continually accelerating and braking. And it was like it was going from full power to full brake, and people were sort of being bounced up and down the coaches. After a while, the algorithms were improved and the jerk reduced, and it became more comfortable. So, if we're replacing the driver, what do we need to think about? Well, the driver currently manages the speed of the train, and that is over a number of issues, not just the permitted speed on the route, but also adjusting the speed early, ready for speed reductions, etc. They use their route knowledge to know when to begin to slow down so that it is comfortable for the passengers. We don't want any high brake rates if we can avoid them. They also manage gradients. As you go over a summit, then the train will begin to speed up. And one challenge is if you have a railway which goes up and down, then as the train starts to go down, it will speed up and that will cause the brakes to be applied, which can be aggressive and can be cause a jerk. So by looking at the gradient profile ahead, the driver is able to reduce speed as they approach the summit just slightly so that as they go over and the train begins to speed up, they do not need to brake. The driver also can manage low adhesion or low adhesion risk. By looking out of the window, they can see whether the situation is such that low adhesion might occur, perhaps due to leaf fall or light rain. They can also feel through the braking system and the power traction system whether there is a problem with wheel slide occurring. So they are very good at adjusting their driving style to manage the risks. An ATO train needs to be told about low adhesion risk and therefore needs to change its driving profile. However, as we'll see later, that can be quite an on-off type toggle, a low adhesion driving or a high adhesion driving. The problem is that it can't adjust linearly between the two, whereas a driver will adjust gently. And it may be that if they know of an area of low adhesion, they will start braking earlier before encountering the low adhesion area so that they don't need to brake within it. The driver is also good at managing the timetable. They know when the train is due to arrive and when it's due to depart. They can reduce the speed on the approach to a station so that they arrive at the correct time. There's nothing worse than having stopped in a station and sitting there for a couple of minutes with the doors open and the wind whistling through. Sometimes to actually just run a little bit slower on the approach so that you arrive on time and then are able to depart on time with a minimum closure of the opening of the doors is advantageous. Drivers also know where stations are. They know which platforms are going to be used and they know where the stopping positions are for different types of train. so that they can approach and stop the train in the correct location. One interesting thing about stations is that when ATO is often introduced for high capacity lines with the aim of getting more trains through a section of route, but actually the station becomes the critical point. The dwell time in a station can be the driving factor for the number of trains. And that dwell time is not affected by anything that the system can do or even the driver. It is the design of train and the number of carriages on that train and also the design of the platforms. So we're now ready to go into AD or automatic driving. And this is part of the ETCS specifications for baseline 4. It requires that the ATO selector switch is in the on position so that it can be operational. The driver needs to take action to engage ATO. And at any time within ATO, the driver can take that control back, either by actioning the brakes or selecting the disengage. And it has to supervise the train as if it was in full supervision. Although there may be some adjustments to the braking curves because the system can operate automatically without having to allow for a human time delay. So as we know from other ETCS modes and transitions, it is all defined in Chapter 4, subset 26. And there is a new transition with number 80 for going from FS, full supervision, to AD, automatic driving. And one of the key bits is that it has to be full supervision and it has to know the speed and gradient for the whole length of the train. The entering FS message that a driver may see in normal operation is not permitted. And the ATO system needs to be ready. It needs to be ready to take control. And we're going to have a look at what that means in the next talk. So next time we will be looking at journey profiles, which are effectively the timetable, which are transmitted to the train via the ATO system, not over the ETCS system. And also segment profiles, which describe the track that the train is going to travel over and any features that the ATO system needs to be aware of, including the location of platforms. So that is for next time.